So if this is the first time you've watched a tutorial from me, please watch another one because, I am going to keep it real. You know, not everything goes well in the studio, and this project was problematic from the beginning, but I thought, you know what? We've got to learn to deal with this stuff, and we've got to endure it, and sometimes things don't work out the way you hoped, so I decided I would just put the tutorial together anyway, even though I haven't even decided what I'm going to do with the finished piece because I don't like how it turned out. But anyway, I got some wood from Walmart and I put a couple layers of encaustic on it, and my idea was that I had this sketch I had done in my sketchbook, and I was turning the sketch into a pastel piece. And then when I did the pastel piece, I didn't really like her, and so I thought maybe she'd look better if I put her under some encaustic and did something with her. So I cut her out of my sketchbook and got some Yes paste and put the Yes paste on the back. And here's where things just didn't go well. I should have been using the Yes paste on a flat surface. I should have done much better at adhering. I did fuse the encaustic before I put her on, but it's still, you can see right here, there's bubbles. And I should have stopped right there. Instead, I'm trying to squish them down with the paper, and it's not working. And so once you set off on a course like that, I knew better than to do that. You can see the bubbles at the top by her hair, and it's just not going to work. But what did I do? I just plowed ahead because I just thought, oh, well, I'll see what happens and make it work, and I just wasn't willing to give up my idea at that point. So you can watch here as I layer a few, I think I put 3 layers of encaustic over the top of her, but the bubbles, just kind of get worse. Honestly, I wasn't really sure what would happen when I started to fuse the encaustic. I had sprayed her with fixative, just charcoal fixative, and she actually held. So I did learn that pastel that has fixative sprayed over it will hold up under the encaustic. So there's a bonus right there, even though she's turning out with quite a few issues, as you can see. But it was kind of interesting to see what would happen after I fused the encaustic and how long she would hold up under it. And she actually did really well. She did better than I did. So at this point, I'm thinking to myself, well, she kind of looks like she's, buried under or behind, not buried, but I should have buried her behind a window, maybe. Maybe behind some glass. I'm clearly reaching for how I can still make this thing work and make her work. So I thought, what if I accentuated that a little bit and tried to bury her under a piece of tissue paper, just plain old tissue paper, a little bit further, and made it more like she's looking through a window. So I'm just letting you into my head. This is what I'm thinking as I continue to work on her. I think I ended up with 4 total layers of encaustic over the top of her, each getting progressively worse. So I thought, I have some tissue paper. I know how tissue paper reacts under the encaustic. It's pretty amazing. You can actually stamp on tissue paper and include it under the encaustic. It's pretty cool. But I decided to just dig out a piece of tissue paper, cut it to fit, and once the wax was warmed up, and it was warmed here, I would just apply it right onto the piece and then put encaustic over that and see what happens. So a little bit of experimentation. I guess that's another benefit when things don't work out in the studio. It makes you kind of stretch yourself and experiment with a few things because, what have you got to lose, right? the 4 sections of the window pane and hope for the best and keep moving forward. If you've watched any of my other videos, and again, hopefully you have, this isn't your first one, I love the R&F oil pigment sticks, and so I'm just going to rub some of the burnt sienna into the incising lines so that I can create the window pane effect. And at this point, I'm still holding out hope. And I think I've learned this week also in my studio, it was like a week of bombing out. I had done another pastel piece with a child's face holding a kitten, and it wasn't really working, at least the face wasn't. And I ended up cutting off the head and just using the arms, which I really loved, holding the kitten, the arms of the child holding the kitten, and it really worked. And I hung it in my studio as just a reminder that, sometimes you just pieces of a piece work out, sometimes the piece doesn't work as a whole, and you do, need to trash it and move on. But art is so amazing, and that we're always learning as we're doing it. And this one, obviously, it was a huge learning process for me, and I really felt that in order to be authentic on my YouTube channel, I just need to show when things don't quite go as I hoped they would, and just kind of letting you inside my mind a little bit. So I'm using some gold. I love the metallic pan pastels. Using some gold pan pastel here, and I was going to go with white, but then the gold just really attracted me. And I also thought it might draw away from what wasn't working in the piece. And so you do have to burnish the pan pastel with your finger a bit. So you'll see me doing that, as well as putting kind of a dark edge all the way around it. Yeah, so now I'm kind of intrigued again as to whether or not the piece is changing. Maybe it's going to be something that works. Still a lot of uncertainty, but I'm trying to let myself, because I'm a real perfectionist, and the temptation to just take this and toss it in the swimming pool was really, really high. But I just continued to press forward and try to let the piece teach me what I needed to learn. So in the spirit of trying things I've never tried, here's some acrylic paint. I figured since it was the last layer of encaustic, I could possibly see if acrylic paint and a stencil would stick to the encaustic, and it did actually remarkably well. Again, this piece is teaching me so much about the medium and about the process. So took a stencil, and my idea was just maybe some of her thoughts going across that as she was behind the glass, and then I decided to incise some more and just kind of see what shape the piece took as I continued to move forward with that idea of her being behind the window, and some different things, thoughts and artistic designs and things like that over the top. So honestly, at this point, I'm stuck. I ended up using the incising and the same process with the pigment stick, and this is how she sits right now in my studio. She's I just set her aside because I am not sure. I'm not sure what my next steps are. And a week like this can be really discouraging, and so I made myself intentionally do what I love best, which is just work in my sketchbook a little bit, feel good about some pieces that did go well, and remember that there are always lessons to be learned from these pieces, whether they go the way that we hope they will or not. So thanks for hanging in there and watching this one. I hope being transparent and vulnerable is helpful to you. And just remember, don't give up. If you're doing your artwork, sometimes it can feel really lonely, and you might question or doubt, but don't give up. Keep going. You need to make art.